Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class, which is from Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. Chapter 10, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. This morning we're doing text 35. Without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari, Yashodanandana Vadajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vadajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jamuna Vira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajagacharya Stotra Satasisi Mother's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajagacharya Stotra Satasisi Mother's Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivachari Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Swami Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamanta Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and gṛhṇanti to the Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tere Swami Iti Namani. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tere Iti Namani. Narayana Namaste Cha Narum Chaivam Namuttamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Gajirayat Nashta Prayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 35, and as usual, I'm going to chant that 3 times, and anyone who feels so inclined to chant the verse can do that also. Amunī bhagavad-rūpe māyā-te anuvarṇite ubhe api na gṛhṇanti māyā-sṛṣṭe vipaścitaḥ. Amunī bhagavad-rūpe māyā-te anuvarṇite ubhe api na gṛhṇanti māyā-sṛṣṭe vipaścitaḥ. Amunī bhagavad-rūpe māyā-te anuvarṇite ubhe api na gṛhṇanti māyā-sṛṣṭe vipaścitaḥ. Hare Krishna. Please chant.
amunī bhagavad-rūpe mayā-te anuvarṇite ubhe api na gṛhṇanti māyā-sṛṣṭe vipaścitaḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
amunī bhagavad-rūpe mayā-te anuvarṇite ubhe api na gṛhṇanti māyā-sṛṣṭe vipaścitaḥ.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
amunī bhagavad-rūpe māyā-te anuvarṇite ubhe api na gṛhṇanti māyā-sṛṣṭe vipaścitaḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? All right, we'll do it forward. Amunī, all these, Bhagavat, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rūpe, in the forms. Māyā, by me. Te, unto you. He, certainly. Anuvarṇite, described respectively. Ubhe, both. Api, also. Na, never. gṛhṇanti, accepts. Māyā, external. Sṛṣṭe, being so manifested. Vipaścitaḥ, the learned one who knows. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Neither of the above forms of the Lord as just described unto you from the material angle of vision is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know Him well. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in His Vishvarupa, or all-pervading universal form. And on the other, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle. But both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishvarupa of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Adrishta purvam hishitosmi drishva yena cha prabhatitam mano me tad eva me dashaya deva rupam prasida devasha jagan nivasa. Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord, Vishvarupa. But when he did see it, his curiosities were satisfied. But he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayan or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has a supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms. But the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his forms as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as the Tripad Vibhuti, or Kingdom of God. The Lord in the Tripad Vibhuti abode exhibits himself in two forms, either with four hands or with two hands. The Vishvarupa exhibited in the material manifestation has unlimited hands and unlimited dimensions, with everything unlimited. The pure devotees of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayan or Krishna. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world also by his grace as Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, Sri Narasimhadev, etc. And thus the pure devotees also worship them. Usually, the features shown in the material world have no existence in the Vaikuntha planets, and thus they are not accepted by the pure devotees. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The non-devotee impersonalists imagine the material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the Lord. Whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also in the perfect stage of salvation eternally. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after his attainment of salvation when he merges in the impersonal form of the Lord known as the Brahmajyoti. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are described here as vipaścitaḥ, or the learned who are in the knowledge of the Lord perfectly. Om gṛhṇanti miranyasya jnana jnana shalakaya chakshu amritam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Shatarini. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Bhatise Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shri Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. The English translation again. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know him well. Hare Krishna. So, this is obviously a continuation of the Supreme Lord's description. And in this text that we're in, it talks about two forms of the Lord, which we will get into. Actually, was described earlier in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. We'll get into it in a little more detail. So, in the text itself, says, neither of the above forms are accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know him well. So that's sending an indirect message to us that we shouldn't accept these forms as the ones to concentrate on. As a matter of fact, Arjuna did not either, even though he asked for one of them to be produced. And that's in chapter 11 of Bhagavad-gītā. So one, the impersonalists are thinking of the absolute personality of Godhead in two ways. They worship the Lord as the Vishva-rūpa, the all-pervading universal form. Now, the universe is in the material world. The planets are material planets, as distinct from the planets in the spiritual world. Tripad Vibhuti. Tripad Vibhuti means the division of the material and the spiritual. The material world is 3 times the size of the material. The spiritual world is 3 times the size of the material world. So that 3 times is the Tripad Vibhuti, and the material world is Ek. Eka 1, Ek Vibhuti. So that's about that one. So Vishvarupa, or the universal form of the Lord, that's the Lord that the impersonalists view based on the alignment or the arrangement of the material planets in the universe. That's what's called the universal form. So that's one of them. And as it said, the devotees don't worship that. The other ones, they think of the Lord as unmanifested, in other words, without form, They're looking at a subtle aspect. We all act literally, we have a subtle body ourselves. But does it have form? No. What's a subtle body? For us, which is easy to use to describe this subtle form that they're talking about here, being personalist. The subtle form is made of mind. Does the mind have form? No. It's made of intelligence also. Does intelligence have form? No. And it's made of ego. Does the ego have form? No. So the subtle body doesn't have form. So in the same way, when they think of a Lord in that form, actually, we will talk about the Brahmajyoti later on, which also doesn't have form, the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord. So they are thinking of the Lord as material, universal form, or the subtle form, which we just described. So Srila Prabhupada used two terms, pantheism and monism. So what is pantheism? That's the philosophical and religious belief that God is identical to the universe, nature, and all that exists, rather than one distinct personal creator. They look up the whole of the universe and all that exists. That's called God. That's like looking at the universal form then. Because people perceive the Lord that way, based on the universe. So that's pantheism. Now, monism is also a philosophical idea. But that says all things in existence are part of the same oneness or whole, which means monism is opposed to dualism, which says that there is a material realm and then, or mental realm, and then a physical realm. They say everything is one source. So they don't divide it like that. Even at the material level, just even physical, gross and subtle. They don't even get to that far. They don't go that far. So that's monism. And pantheism, as we said, it's like the universal form, believing everything is, the God is identical to the entire universe. Devotees reject both. The pure devotees of the Lord, so we are practicing, we are following the footsteps of the pure devotees of the Lord, so we also reject that. Although these things do exist, the planets are there, the universes are there, therefore there is the existence of the universe, but they look at God based on the universe. It's one of them. And Shiva Prabhupada wants to make the point in this purport of Arjuna's experience. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, there was a strategy behind this whole point of Arjuna asking Krishna to show the Vishwa-rūpa or the universal form. Because it was already known by the Lord, who knows the future, that rascals will come and also claim to be God themselves. It's funny, when Srila Prabhupada was in New York in the late 60s, and he started preaching at 26 2nd Avenue. That area was only a couple of blocks away. There were, a lot of bums were there. But some of them would come through there where Sri Prabhupada was preaching. One of them came through and even supplied toilet tissue. And Sri Prabhupada said he was drunk as a skunk, but he still supplied that. Sri Prabhupada says, see, the Paramatma, the soul, the super soul, can sometimes direct intelligence for these guys who are even in that kind of state to do something nice. But anyway, the main point, the reason I bring it up is one of them one time came drunk like anything, interrupted Srila Prabhupada's class and said, you are God, I am God, everybody is God. Like that. Of course, the devotees, even though they were new at the time in Krishna consciousness, they definitely were not going to listen to him. Because Krishna Prabhupada had already establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the minds of these new devotees who had just started coming to 26th Avenue. But there are people who think like that. Mm-hmm. So Arjuna asked for the universal form, which is one of the two that we just talked about, to be shown by Krishna for the strategic reason that some people later on would come and say, I am God, and we are already being prompted. And so if you don't know, then you should hear of today. If somebody tells you that I am God, respectfully ask him to show his universal form. Because that's what happened in the case of Arjuna. Arjuna asked Krishna to show his universal form, and Krishna did. Not only did he do that, he actually gave Arjuna the type of capability of his eyes to see the universal form. Even that he did. So this is how we can, in fact, debunk or expose those who are fake gods. If you say you're a God, then you should be able to produce universal form. Srila Prabhupada cannot produce universal form, but Srila Prabhupada never said he was God. So those who claim like that, then they can be put in their place as deceivers. So that's why Srila Prabhupada quoted, so that's one of the reasons, quoted Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11. The 11th chapter is actually called the universal form. Text 45, where the direct translation is, after seeing this universal form, this is Arjuna speaking, after seeing this universal form, which I've never seen before, I am gladdened, I'm happy. But at the same time, my mind is disturbed with fear. And we'll explain why. Actually, Srila Prabhupada has explained it, we'll just mention it again. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and again reveal your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, the abode of the universe. Arjuna asked Krishna to show his universal form for reasons we have explained, so that the fake gods, can be exposed because they can't show the universal form. But Arjuna's mind was disturbed, and that's the point here in this particular text of Srimad Bhagavatam. Pure devotees don't relate to the universal form. That's why when Arjuna saw the several heads and several mouths and the soldiers and the generals in the field of Kurukshetra before the battle started, he saw the future, literally. The universal form showed him the future because he saw all of them being crushed, being killed. They were just helplessly it's almost like the mouth of the universal form were like magnets, magnetizing everybody, pulling all the soldiers into his mouth and crushing them and killing them. So Krishna showed Arjuna his universal form, but also showed him what was going to happen before the war started. He had also said they would be killed. Actually, right after the universal form, then Arjuna was asking, what is your mission for coming, Krishna? Then he says, everybody will be destroyed except you, the Pandavas. So, Arjuna said in this Bhagavad Gita 11, chapter 45th text, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal your form as the personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada explains, in the spiritual world, the Lord is there in his two-handed form and also his four-handed form. So in the Vaikuntha planet, different from Goloka Vrindavan, the Lord is there as Narayan in his four-handed form. And in fact, the residents also have four hands. In Goloka Vrindavan, the biggest planet and the farthermost planet in the spiritual world, Krishna is there in the two hands that we're used to in our temples. Sometimes you see the deities, sometimes you see pictures of Krishna, two-handed form. Sometimes you see him as Lord Chaitanya, two-handed form. Sometimes you see him with Srimati Radharani, and Krishna is two-handed, and Srimati Radharani is two-handed form. So that's for the planet, the most versatile in terms of relationships, the most versatile planet, Golok Vrindavan. The most versatile in all of existence. So when Arjuna saw the universal form of the Lord, first of all, his curiosities were satisfied. Yeah, he was curious. He was the one that asked the question, please show your universal form. But actually, Krishna induced him, Arjuna, to ask him, Krishna, to show his universal form for the reasons we just talked about, so that the fake gods, would be easily exposed because they can't show that form. But when he saw what was happening with the universal form, Arjuna got scared. And then he asked, please, please, please show your form that I'm used to. And the Lord showed his form, the four-handed form, which is the one that's present in all of the spiritual planets, except Golok Vrindavan, four-handed form. We showed that to Arjuna. And then he came back to his original form, which he was relating to Arjuna all of that time, the Krishna two-handed form. So these two, universal form, and also even the Brahma Jyoti, pure devotees are not interested in that. They don't. They're not interested at all. And one, you can't relate to either one of them. It's not possible. You cannot have a relationship like a servant or a friend to the universal form, or a friend to the effulgence, the Brahma Jyoti. You can't. So we all like relationships. We are in different relationships, sometimes parental, sometimes we are the children, sometimes we are friends, and sometimes we are lovers, and sometimes, we're married people. So these are all relationships. They're all relationships. But if you can't get relationship with the universal form of the Lord, which is the planetary arrangements, and you cannot get the relationship with the Lord as the universal light, the Brahma Jyoti, why would devotees of the Lord want to relate to those forms? There is no relationship in either one of them. So that's why the pure devotees don't like to, because they want a relationship to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You have to be in a relationship with them. That is the whole point. And these two don't provide that type of relationship, any type of relationship. And that's why the pure devotees don't relate in that way to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, so the non-devotees, impersonalists, we won't spend too much time talking about them, but Srila Prabhupada has talked about them in the purport. So they imagine the material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge into the Brahma Jyoti of the Lord. When the Lord, let's add this too, when the Lord kills demons, a good many of them also go to the Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence of the Lord, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. If anyone is interested in merging into the impersonal forms of the Lord, anyone, not that is apart from us devotees, because we're not interested in that, the soul, which is now in the heart area of every person, the real personality, the soul, after death, leaves and gets its regular form, the Siddha Swarup, its regular form in the spiritual world, if the devotee is bound for the spiritual world by the mercy of the Lord and also the mercy of the Guru, or if for whatever reason, the person, I'm not talking about the devotee now, just the person wants to merge, especially my body, wants to merge into the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence, that form that we have now, the size, I should say size, the size that we have, the atomic size does not change. A person going into the Brahmajyoti would go in this atomic, the soul would still be atomic size. It will merge, true enough. It will be in there in the form, but there will be no relationship. And the size would remain the same, atomic size. But when a devotee has gotten the mercy of the Lord and is going back to the spiritual world, then, as Maggu Maharaj explains it, this atomic form expands now into the full size of the person in the spiritual world, the original form in the spiritual world. So there's change then. Whereas the person going to merge into the Brahmajyoti or the effulgence of the Lord, there's no change. It just goes the way the soul is now into the effulgence of the Lord. Mm-hmm. So the non-devotee impersonalist, they connect with the material forms of the Lord, like what we talked about here, the universal form containing the planets. There's another part of the universal form that actually is quite necessary, especially for the life of Lord Brahma, but we'll get to that in a minute or so. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist, that stops after they've attained where they want to go, merging into the Brahmajyoti. So there's no activity. So everything that impersonalists used to do in the material world before going into the Brahmajyoti, that even stops there. There's just existence there, that's all. There's also peace, but there's no relationship. And we, the spice of life, as people do talk about, spice of life depends on relationship. So devotees should never even think of going to those kind of places, merging with the Brahmajyoti, or appreciating or being very connected to the form of the Lord and believing that the material forms, the universal form is that, they get it out of it. My own feelings show you that, that's not something to focus on at all. So if you've heard it somewhere, be sure to get it out of your mind. We bring these things up because there are people in this world now, and of course, we go to different places. Sometimes we travel, sometimes we meet people, and they say they know about God, and they may start describing the universal form in that way. And believe me, now there are videos being made, put on YouTube, and they start you off like, something that is known by what Srila Prabhupada, known to us by what Srila Prabhupada preached. But then in the middle, you see that it's turned into something totally different. So we have to watch. YouTube is allowing any and everything to be put on. Very little restrictions, very little conditions. So yeah, these things are being put on videos in a subtle form. There was one lady that it's part of the ISKCON Philadelphia group that I'm cultivating. And she sent me a video, innocently sent me a video. And I watched it, and when I finished, I wrote a long text to her, and she was disappointed at the end of it because there was comparison of one of the books in the Bible with devotee life. And that is not possible to compare like that. But there was an attempt for that person to do it. And everything that this person was speaking about, I don't know whether it was actually AI speaking, but there was no a real person. It was just the pictures. And everything they talked about devotee life was true. Was true. But then they were trying to relate it to the book of Thomas, and that's where everything fell apart. Fortunately, I know a little bit about the Bible because I was a Christian before I came to Krishna consciousness. So basically, I just explained to her, but it was also part of my Guru Maharaj's plan or Srila Prabhupada's plan, because after I had to defeat it by pointing so many things that were not consistent, because this person was saying, oh, the Book of Thomas is the same thing as Vaishnava life. And that's not the case at all. That disprove it. And then that's what opened her mind up. Said, okay, well, then she's ready to listen. What is real Vaishnava life? Because this is, although it's personal, I'll just tell you, before then, she was not really interested. She was interested in chanting, but didn't want to know much about the philosophy. But after, so Krishna tricked her in many ways. Anyway, I won't spend too much time on it. But the point is, people will let you think that they know what they're talking about and then mislead you somewhere else. We've been warned several times, especially the Mayavadis. They're good at that. So in the spiritual world, the four-handed form, those spiritual planets where the Lord is there as Narayan, they are attained by those in the 3 of the 4 sampradayas. There are 4 sampradayas. We are in the Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya sampradaya. And we in that sampradaya, Srila Prabhupada's, obviously just living based on Srila Prabhupada's teachings, you're automatically in that particular sampradaya. We get to be taken by the mercy of the Lord to Goloka Vrindavan, where there's the most versatile relationship, and Krishna is there in the 2-handed form, and Srimati Radharani, and the gopis, and the cowherd boys, and so many other residents there. The other 3 sampradayas, those who are connected with those go to the Vaikuntha planets where the Lord is there in his 4-handed form. And there the relationship is in awe and reverence. Lord Narayan is the king and everybody else is the subject. For example, in the Goloka Vrindavan, you can be a lover of Krishna. There's conjugal relationship like that. But in the planets, the other planets, the Vaikuntha planets, the Lord's consort is Lakshmi. And nobody else can take the position of Lakshmi. You either are Lakshmi or you're not relating in a conjugal way with Lord Narayan. But you can relate in a conjugal way with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. That is the difference. That's just one of the differences. There are some that are in the parental humor. Sometimes say parental, we use the word humor. Srila Prabhupada actually used the word humor the first time I saw it, because nobody really is parent of Krishna. The Lord is the beginning and the end of everything. But the role for a loving relationship is there, that one can be the parent of Krishna, just like Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, or for that matter, Devaki. Like that, the parent of the Lord. And the Lord wants to relate in loving relationship as a son. You can't do that with Lord Narayan. You cannot even play the role of being Lord Narayan's father. It just not doesn't exist. It doesn't. So there's more intimate type relationships in Goloka Vrindavan. That's the point we want to make. And so in one sense, we're very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada is leading us to that one planet, the biggest planet. And we can't even imagine the size of it, because in regular terms, the other Vaikuntha planets that are not as big as Goloka Vrindavan, they are already 1 trillion to 2 trillion times bigger than the universes, not the planets, the universes in the material world. They are that big. 1 to 2, we say 1 to 2 trillion. Trillion is a million taken a million times. We say 1 to 2 trillion because some of the universes in the material world are bigger than others. So the smaller ones, the Vaikuntha planets like 2 trillion times bigger, and the bigger ones between about 1 trillion times bigger than the universes in the material world. So the Srila Prabhupada says the majority of all living entities are in the spiritual world. This is a small section, 1/4 of all existence. And this is, comparatively small percentage of entities in the material world. But we see them as so many people in the Earth planet, which is one small planet in one small universe of all billions of universes in the material world. There, for the human beings alone, over 8 billion. And we think it's a lot of human beings. But actually, in the overall scheme of things, in the cosmos, we're like a dot. We're very, 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 very small. So there are so many other entities in the spiritual world, and there's so much versatility of relationship also in the spiritual world. Now, I had mentioned one thing that I wanted to talk about, which was about Lord Brahma and the universal form. So devotees don't really relate to the universal form of the Lord. And as we talked about earlier, Arjuna was induced in the heart by Krishna to ask Krishna to show his universal form. Just so anybody that is claiming to be God, we can actually challenge them, although respectfully challenge them to show the universal form. And if they can't, then we know they're not God. We can tell easily. Now, it's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam that, of course, Lord Brahma goes to sleep at night, a long time compared to us, 4,320,000,000 years, 12 hours of Lord Brahma's time. When Lord Brahma wakes up, by that time, a good part of the universe, of his universe, has been destroyed. All of the planets, except 4 planetary systems, are destroyed. Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. They are still there. And the rest are all destroyed. So when Lord Brahma wakes up, part of what he does is to put the universe back together. Through Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Put it back together. And what happens is, remember, Lord Brahma was showed how to put the universe together initially, when he was born. It was showed by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. It is said in the Bhagavatam that to put the rest of the universe back together, remember the 4 planetary systems, they don't go anywhere. Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka are still present. But the rest of them, Swagaloka and down to Bhuvaloka and Bhuloka, which is where we are, and then the 7 planetary, lower planetary systems and the hellish planets, they all been destroyed. So the Lord shows the universal form with the planets to Lord Brahma to help him to put together the planetary systems again in the universe. So that's one essential thing that benefits Lord Brahma when Lord Brahma wakes up. This is explained. One may think, oh, but he put the planets together the first time. What come? He forgot or something? Well, I'm not touching that, because what is in the Bhagavatam is what it says, that he gets some help from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu by the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu showing him the whole universal form. So Lord Brahma can, again, use that as like the, forget the word, I wouldn't remember now anyway, as a way to look at it. No, the word is blueprint, as like a blueprint to put the universe back together again. So that's one good use of the universal form. For Lord Brahma, though. But we don't actually go by thinking about the universal form or living life based on the Lord being the universal form. Pantheism, monism, we're not like that. What does Krishna ask us to do? He says, Man manabhava mat bhakto, mat yajimam namaskuru. 4 things in Bhagavad-gītā 18, chapter 18, text 65. It says, always think of me. That's 1. Become my devotee. That's 2. Worship me. That's 3. And offer your obeisances or your homage unto me. That's 4. Srila Prabhupada, one time, in a lecture when devotees were asking questions, he immediately got surprised and says, "You're not reading Bhagavad Gita?" The question was, how long does one take before become self-realized, believing in Krishna fully? Srila Prabhupada didn't even let the person finish, that devotee finish. He says, 1 minute, and he opened his eyes very widely. 1 minute. You're not reading Bhagavad Gita? Krishna says, "Ban mana bhapapat makto, bad nijimam namaskuru." 4 things. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your obeisances to me. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 65. Then he went to text 66, the very next text. Sarva dharman parityaja, mamekam sharanam vaja, aham tvam sarva papi moksha ishami. And when he said moksha ishami, he opened his eyes wide. Moksha ishami masicha. Abandon all varieties of religion. Speaking about the experience that I had with this Mataji in the YouTube video. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me. And I'll save you from all sinful reactions. Krishna says, when we surrender to him and stay with him as the single worshipable Lord, then even the reactions, that is, the karma that we have to deal with, he'll save us from that. When we accept the Lord as the only worshipable Supreme Personality of Godhead, then devotees are not under karma anymore. And when we're not under karma, Krishna has already saved us from the karmic reactions because we don't live life based on karma anymore. That's why it's a huge advantage. And karma is the one that gives, is the basis for the different types of bodies that a person gets in the next life. Based on what they're acting in the next life, what they're thinking of, what their desires are. Then the soul goes from one body to the next body. This other body carries the soul to the next existence. But when karma is removed by the mercy of the Lord, then there's no going to the next existence. There's just either going back home, back to the spiritual world, or continuing if we didn't take things with the extent of seriousness required, we'll be put back in the human body. And be born in such a way that we are going to get in touch with, this is not simple reaction at all. This is just Lord's plan. We're going to get in touch with devotees again and continue where we left off. We don't get our spiritual credits erased. No, the spiritual credits are still there. That's permanent. And we continue from where we left off. The physical body may be new. That's, of course, the physical body is always, when you're born, if you're a baby, you're a baby, and then you have to grow up later on. But Krishna would arrange to put us in touch with devotees so we can continue. But having said all of that, what a spiritual master wants us to do, what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do, is actually go back home after leaving this body. After leaving this body. Anybody that's aware of what's going on around Earth, the major countries in terms of power, they're already in wars. This is not a place to be very comfortable at. This is a place that's very uncertain from one situation to another. It's very uncertain. And that's even just to put it mildly, it's uncertain. It's a dangerous place to be, quite frankly. It's a dangerous place to be. So we have to really take Krishna's word, thinking of the Lord, becoming the Lord's devotee seriously. We shouldn't do this niyamagraha thing. With niyamagraha, it's explained in Nectar of Instruction. Taking Krishna consciousness like, just something to do, not taking it seriously. Or not taking it seriously, but not even doing the things we're supposed to do. Not chanting, or chanting, but not, seriously with proper focus, all of that. That comes under what's called niyamagraha. That's self-sabotage. We're sabotaging ourselves if we did that. So we should pray for greater attention when we're chanting. We should just ask the Lord, if our mind roams too much, give me a way. Give me a way to focus my mind. Everybody's mind is like that. When it comes to chanting, we can chant, and then sometimes, as one of the Prabhupada disciples put it, he says it becomes background music. And our mind is thinking of something else, but the mouth is just chanting Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Also not so distinctly because we're not focusing on it. We should pray for the mind to become more focused. So the mind should be thinking about Krishna and the mouth should be chanting Krishna's name. Both of them should be focused on Krishna. So personally, because of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's mercy, one of the things that I personally do is when chanting, if the mind is threatening, my own mind, threatening to go on to something else, I give it a nice caveat, something to keep the mind focused on the Lord. And that is gṛhṇanti, just chanting gṛhṇanti. If the mind is going to go back, then let the one mind, the conscious mind chant Hare Krishna, and then the subconscious that wants to roam, or the other part of that wants to roam, stay with gṛhṇanti. Gṛhṇanti, Nityananda, gṛhṇanti, Nityananda. So everything is now based on the mental part of myself. It's focused on the Lord, on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's just one suggestion. I'm not imposing it. I'm not imposing it. Let me just say it again. But because there are other ways. You can look at pictures of the Lord. You can look at the pictures of a spiritual master, using more of the senses, the sense of hearing, chanting out loud so you can hear, loud enough so you can hear. Watching the deity or the picture of a deity, watching the picture of a spiritual master, all of those, the more senses that we use, the more our minds become focused. Even chanting with pronouncing the words more distinctly also helps us to focus on the holy name. So those are all there. So what I mentioned about gṛhṇanti, that's a personal thing that I myself use. So the most confidential part of the Lord, relating to the Lord, is what's described here. One should become a pure devotee of Krishna by always thinking of him. And by the way, we shouldn't be afraid of the word pure. Pure devotee of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada wants us to be pure devotees. Because pure devotees have such an effect when they talk about Krishna to others. They can pull them to Krishna consciousness. That's one thing that's there with pure devotees. So the more we strive towards being purified, the more we can be used to pull more people into the movement, Lord Chaitanya's movement. So Srila Prabhupada, in more than one lecture, he said, I would like my devotees to be pure. So we should strive towards purity. With prayer and with determination and with humility, we should strive like that so that we can be used by the Supreme Lord and be used by the spiritual master on what he says. If we ourselves are pure, then when we carry that message, it has effect. Purity is the force. The less pure we are, the less, no matter what we say from the spiritual, from the scriptures, even if it's accurate, the less effect we have on the person that could change Krishna consciousness. The less effect. The purer we are, the greater the effect that we have. With the same words. It works like that. So we have to be very, 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 very much determined to serve by looking at ways to get pure ourselves. Hanging out with those who are pure, who are very fixed up. That's one way, because your friends influence the way you become. Why you think they are gangs? People who are doing things in mode of goodness, others who join them, they also act in mode of ignorance. Those who are acting in mode of ignorance like that, and they call themselves a gang. So in the same way, if you hang out with someone who is fixed up in Krishna consciousness, you will also become fixed up. So there is so much to gain in this world that's, we're going to leave this world that's falling apart, but at least we can help the world by being pure ourselves, striving for purity and obeying Krishna's instructions Be his pure devotee, think of him, offer obeisances to him, and worship him. Worship the spiritual master, and serve the devotees very nicely. And then Krishna will be pleased with us. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, thank you for coming on to here this morning. And this is time now to unmute yourself. You have a question, you have a comment, you have a takeaway, whatever, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Thank you, dear Krishna. So this is all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We appreciate you. Any questions or comments? Are there any questions or comments? If not, then we'd like to thank you for coming on this morning and have a nice rest of your week, day and week. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shane. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpataruvishcha kripa sindhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you again. Hare Krishna. Okay. Oh, one announcement. Thank you, dear Krishna, for bringing it up while we're still on. I'm glad we didn't cut off yet. Gopurniמה is tomorrow. Gopurniמה is tomorrow, so the devotees can come to the temple. Hare Krishna.